morning. My name is Daniel Shirey. I'm just going to start talking today about PTSD and its treatments. So PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. They're leaning away from the term disorder because it's not really a disorder as much as it is a reordering of the brain's processing functions. So when people experience post-traumatic stressors, what happens is their hippocampus will actually shrink. So the hippocampus is, imagine a filing cabinet. It stores, it processes all your information, all your senses and everything. It just keeps it organized so that you can retrieve it whenever necessary. So when PTSD occurs, imagine if instead of filing cabinets where you can easily retrieve all your information, whenever you open certain cabinet drawers, it's like Uno attacks, or that scene from Ghostbusters in the library where everything just starts flying out and it's kind of hard to deal with it. So PTSD happens after an individual witnesses or experiences a terrifying event. It's not all combat related, although most people think of it in relation to service members or the war or something terrible, but it can happen to pretty much anybody. PTSD occurs in roughly 3 million people in the United States alone, and that's just certified diagnoses. It's not counting everyone who has it but is afraid or doesn't know that they have it. So that's, although that's only 1% of the population, it's possible that a lot of people that you've met are suffering from it, and they haven't either told anyone or they don't know that they have it themselves. PTSD is referred to as the silent wound or silent scream, and it's just that people have a hard time coming to terms with those tragedies or stressors that they've experienced. So right here is going to be where your hippocampus is, and the amygdala is right here. So the amygdala helps you process, overcome, and deal with all situations. And when the hippocampus shrinks, it also does damage to the amygdala. So not only are your memories affected, not only do you have more trouble dealing with certain events, but it also affects your ability to overcome. Researchers believe that PTSD occurs in the human body because it's more of a fight or flight response. So if you keep getting trapped in those memories, say if you had your home broken into. If you had your home broken into and you keep having those memories over and over again, it's because your body's trying to make sure that there's a way that you can deal with those situations because it's put you through those scenarios multiple different times. The most common symptoms are effects to your behavior, to your psychology, to your mood, your sleep, and there's also emotional detachment, unwanted thoughts. So a lot of people that are suffering from PTSD, they're agitated, they're easily irritable, and they have hypervigilant or self-destructive behavior. So maybe they don't seem like they're damaged, maybe they don't react to certain situations, but in other cases they will shrink away, or they'll leave the room, or they just have to get away. Maybe they're numb, maybe they just don't care about anything. They'll go out, they'll just drink as much as possible, and they'll get into fights, and it's just, you just think that's who the person is, but if you didn't know them before these stressors affected them, you don't know what they're going through. So there's a lot of therapy treatments being investigated recently. PTSD and other psychological ailments haven't been researched except, I think, over the past century. So where there have been hospitals and healings for physical ailments for over 7,000 years, and a well-documented case about research and everything like that, PTSD has been, in the early 19th century, it was just putting someone away if they had a mental ailment. So if someone was gay, they got locked away. If someone was, if they had claustrophobia, if they had just any mental ailment that somebody couldn't really put any descriptions on other than crazy, they would just end up in a mental asylum, and there wasn't really any help for them. It was just keeping them contained away from the general population. So over the past 100 years, they've gotten more into group therapy. So that's just people like-minded individuals who have all had the one similar event happen to them. They'll all talk about what has happened to them and how they're getting over it. Family therapy is when someone will bring in their family. They'll talk to them, say they don't feel comfortable talking to their wife or their kids, but maybe they'll talk to their dad or their brother about what has happened and how they feel about it. There's cognitive psychotherapy. So cognitive psychotherapy tracks and measures and evaluates somebody's thinking patterns. So say if you get trapped in a loop, if you're, hey, I can't not think about my house getting broken into. Well, maybe that's because you're worried about this. Have you thought about, whenever you think about that, try and list all your favorite songs that start with the letter A, then B, then C. It's just something to get them out of that loop that they get stuck in. And when you get stuck in a loop, you just get more and more anxious and you have these freakouts. Exposure therapy, it's helping the individual face those memories in a different way. So they're doing exposure therapy right now with virtual reality headsets. So they will put them back in that specific situation and they will guide them through those memories and be like, hey, this is how you deal with this. Remember that's going to be there, but you can overcome it by doing this thing. And then there's EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's another type of exposure therapy. It allows they use a series of guided eye movements. So you just like follow that while they talk to you, and it changes your response to the events that cause that trauma. They're also doing experimental therapies with MDMA. So they'll do microdoses of ecstasy once a month for 3 months while they do about 8 hours of therapy. So they'll start off with 125 milligrams of ecstasy, and then when it starts to kick in, they'll add another 75 milligrams while they talk them through. And it allows those synaptic processes that have been blocked off to open up as they, because it just allows them to think a different way. So a lot of people that have actually done that have found success. Well, when the brain gets damaged, a lot of the damage comes from inflammation. So when you have a brain bleed, when you have swelling, that's a big cause of issues. So they're doing cannabis trials because it has anti-inflammatory effects. So a lot of people with Alzheimer's have found that they have more success with ibuprofen, with drugs that help reduce inflammation, just because it keeps the inflammation down. So there's medications, but a lot of side effects come with medications. Does anybody have any questions?